Welcome back. Where were we? We were talking about doing the the shift motion and on foot adjustments in the last video where we were talking about the silent return spring. And fortunately for this machine, we don't have to do that. It doesn't need its shift motion adjusted, but these are your shift screws right here. You'd have a 5.5 millimeter lock nut on the bottom and your flathead on the top. And I disagree with how Olympia has their things set up, because with Royals and with other German machines, you can go in through the top and crack that lock nut free and then make the adjustment. But because Olympia used a fatter head screw top on this top screw versus that, you can't do that. It won't let you. If they would have just made that screw a little smaller, then you could have avoided taking the whole body off to do your alignment. But you have the alignment down here. That's your on foot, so that will set your baseline for your lowercase letters, and then this top one sets your uppercase, and you would just do your H's. The Phoenix typewriter, Dwayne over at Phoenix Typewriter, he has a ton of material, guys, on typewriters. I'm just doing this. I kind of apprenticed off of his video system, and everything I learned, or when I started out, was just because I would stay up all night and watch Phoenix typewriter videos over and over again and apply what I learned over in his channel to my own experiences and my own experimentation. There isn't a dedicated typewriter school anymore, and you can only intern and apprentice at so many shops because there's only so many shops that are still open. Bill over at Philly Typewriter, I believe he has a good apprentice program, and he has a lot of child labor, apprentices working free for him over there that learn all sorts of typewriter skills. But guys, Phoenix Typewriter, go watch his videos. He has alignment videos on almost every machine out there that you can come in contact with, and they all work pretty much the same. What we're doing today, though, is we are going to do a trip point adjustment. Now, I already started doing a trip point. I'm looking for something to prop up the typewriter here. I'm going to use my big bucket of typewriter spools. Just a couple of blank typewriter spools to prop the machine up. I already recorded this video once, and I was having technical difficulties because I made a mistake and I didn't prop up the typewriter. And I'll get into that. I'll show you what the reasoning behind that is. So your trip point is where your type bars trip the escapement right there into going to the next action. Now, a lot of typewriters, after the trip point, you have a lot of extra play, and a lot of times that is just extra stiffness of you fighting against the escapement springs, and it's unnecessary for the most part. A lot of American machines have trip points that are way out here, and by doing that, it'll go through its trip right here like it's supposed to, and then the rest of this motion, it's just all extra effort that you're putting on the key to get to the platen. Now, I don't agree with that. I believe that you can have your trip point set extra close, and as long as you're still getting consistent type print, or you're not bunching up letters, or you're not falling behind with your escapement trips, you can adjust that to get better type feel. And to do that, there is an adjustment point, and we'll get into that right now. So this is how you adjust the trip point on an Olympia machine. I believe all the Olympia machines run the same. Now, on the bottom side of the machine, you'll have a cover plate here. I already took it off because, like I said, this is the second attempt at this video because I made a mistake. Not a mistake, I just overlooked something. You have this cover plate here, and this cover plate is like a diving board, and it protects the escapement trigger down underneath it. So you would just take this off with 2 flathead screwdrivers and go ahead and set that off to the side. Now, what's under that plate is this trigger, and this trigger is your escapement trigger, and that's how your typewriter knows when to go to the next space. And if you pull your space bar You see the space bar acts on this trigger on this side, but it's all the same tilting mechanism. And there's adjustment points for your space bar right here, but we're going to focus on your key presses and the key press trip points. The lower one is for your lowercase, and the upper is for the uppercase. If you notice, when you press the shift, it raises, and this goes to the trigger up there. Now, I don't normally do a lot of messing around with the uppercase, because as long as it's tripping, you're not typing in uppercase a full novel. So as long as that's that trip point is fine, you can leave that alone. But if you want to work on your lowercase, you surely can. And we're going to do that right now. So you can watch me do that. I'll zoom in. And I already loosened it up, because, like I said, this is round 2. Let me adjust the camera here. The more you go in on the screw, it's a 5mm nut and a flathead, a tiny flathead in there, and my hands might get in the way. The closer you get, the sooner, the closer you get, the earlier the trip point is going to go. And so we want to back it away. We want that trip point, this, to back up, so it takes longer for the bar and the subsequent movement to trip this trigger. So I'm going to back this off a half a turn, 1 turn maybe, and then I'll lock that down with just my finger. Now, here's where I messed up the last video. Since we took the ramp off, or the protector plate, this rests on my desktop, even with the feeties on it. And I was trying to type and it kept jamming, and I was like, why is this jamming? Oh, I look like a freaking idiot. I don't know what I'm doing. And it was because this was just touching the table, and the typewriter wouldn't type because that was on the table. So I'll use some typewriter spools, and I'll flip the machine over, and I will put a spool under the rear. Let's see here. Videotape me putting spools under. So I'll put a spool under this foot, and then I'll put a spool under this foot, and that will get the typewriter off, the escapement off of the desk. And I will test my trip point again, and it's okay. It can be closer. It's tripping about right as the type bar hits the guide, and I like to go almost all the way to the platen for my trip points. So I'm gonna flip it over, and we're gonna work on that a little bit more. On my screwdriver piece. It's right here. Found it, guys. I'm just using, it's such a small screw. I'm just using this little screwdriver attachment. So I'm gonna back this out a little bit more. I have to loosen that lock nut. Back this out, maybe another full turn. Half a turn. We'll do a half a turn. There's a half a turn. Just temporarily lock that down with my finger. Flip it over. Put the spools underneath. You guys already saw that. And then we'll test the trip point again. Click. Yeah, it's pretty close. It's almost there. I'm going to work on the bottom one. Since we pulled out some timing on this top screw, I'm going to go ahead and work on the bottom and see if we can't back that off a little bit. 5mm. Oh, I need a breaker bar. Breaker bar. This has a hole in it, so you can turn it to crack the thing loose. I bought this eyeglass set with a socket attached. Napa Auto Parts, you can get the whole case of it, the whole lineup, for $1 whole bill. Napa Auto Parts online. Look for micro socket wrenches, I guess. But yeah, I ordered like 5 sets just in case I lose them. For $1, heck, why not? So I'm just gonna loosen up this one a little bit. Back that off. very tiny slot, and my screwdriver slots are kind of chewed up. I need to get better eyeglass screwdrivers on this. Okay. I'll flip it over. Yeah. Yep. Almost done, guys. Oops. Fell off of the thing. Fell off of the thing. Fell off of my spool. Yeah, feels pretty good. I like that. Where's my trip? Yeah, I like it. It's right there. Right. Click. Almost all the way touching. Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah, there we go. We got her. So now what I'll do is flip her over, and I'll make sure that these lock nut screws are locked in position. Lock them down. Go ahead and put the plate back on, like so, with its screws. Lock. And I think I mentioned I was going to tell you guys about the spacebar adjustments too. We'll do the spacebar adjustment right now, because a lot of times when you're messing with the typewriter, this happened to me a lot back in the day before I was aware of the parts. Excuse me, I got something stuck in my throat. There was like somebody sprayed air freshener in the air, and it's just eating away at my throat. So when you're moving your typewriter around, oftentimes, let me see if I can back this out. Oftentimes the space bar is exposed, and it's very easy to bump the space bar and knock it out of position. And what would happen is I would put the typewriter back into its shell, and I would go to type, and it either wouldn't type or it wouldn't space correctly. And that's because the whole space bar mechanism is adjustable right here at this front position right there. Here, and you can see it follow it down. There's an arm that goes right here, and then the arm follows it all the way back to the secondary set of adjusters in the back. So it has two adjustment points to adjust your spacebar trip point. And this trip point happens right here, like I showed you in the back. You can see it pulls on the escapement, and you want your spacebar to trip halfway through its motion when it's in its. That looks kind of loose, huh? Yeah, it is kind of loose. We could probably. I wonder if that's tight. We can tighten that up. We'll have to look for that. It might not be something that we can tighten up. But that's your trip point adjustment for your spacebar. You can do it from back here, or you can do it from up here in the front. Now, when you bump this too many times, it will knock off this whole system. So you can loosen up these two screws, and you can adjust your point right there for your spacebar. But that's it, guys. That's it for the basics of Olympia adjustments. I hope it helped you guys out. I hope you learned some stuff. Like I said, I have the machine painted already. It's drying. The clear coat is drying. I have to do a couple more things to do the finish up the paintwork, and then I will put the typewriter together, and I'll do a full show and tell of this machine. I have to change one of the keys. The N is. Have you guys seen how you do the keys? Let's do the key while we're here. Let's zoom in on the key. We got the camera out. Let's pull a key top off. Pulling one key top off is just fine. Pulling off all of them, very tough on the hands, because you have to get under here with your fingers and squeeze them together. Ugh. And as you squeeze in the bottom, you pull the key forward. Did you see that? Like the key magically fell off, like I'm like a magician over here. And the bottom row of keys are by far the easiest to take off because you can pull them down and there's nothing in the way other than the spacebar, and the spacebar dips out of the way. These ones are tough because you have to go forward with it. To that motion that I did where I pulled it backwards, the top row of keys, when you squeeze this spring-loaded contraption in, this is what I'm doing, by the way. I'm pushing in the bottom thing with my fingers and then dropping this forward off of the hook, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to get it back on. Let's look at, see if we can get it in view. Probably not. It's such a tiny spot, but the bottom has a hook on it, and then you would feed it into the bottom like so, and then you would squeeze in the top, or squeeze underneath it while you're rotating it forward, and then click. Now it's back in position, upside down, of course, because I did it while looking through the camera lens. But it's not fun to take off all of these key tops. I'm not even going to try to fight with it now because it's in upside down. That's going to be fun to take off later, guys. Awesome. Anyway, this is the last of the Olympia videos for now, other than the final show and tell. I don't know. I could do more videos on other machines and models, but I don't know if I'm going to do it because I don't know if it's very helpful for folks when they're just looking for certain individual fixes on their machines. But this is what I do every time I get a typewriter. This is how I go through and do all my checks. Body off, do all the things that I mentioned in all these videos to check all the functions, make sure that they're going. And sometimes things slip by. One thing that always slips by me is the shift lock key, because I never use shift lock in my own personal life. So I just totally forget to adjust shift lock. And there's a plate down here. Let's see, where is it? Somewhere in here there's a plate to adjust the shift lock. Yeah, let's see here. The plate is this plate right here that I'm pointing to, and behind it there's two screws. And you loosen those two screws, and then this plate can slide up or down, and then that will show. See how it clicks underneath the plate right here where my thumb is? That's how it shift locks itself. And if the shift lock isn't in line with your other letters, then you have to adjust that plate. And there's one person I sell a few typewriters to, and every single time she gets a typewriter from me, the shift lock is, I guess she really likes using the shift locks, or it's just part of her own little checks that she does. But she always gets me on that. So I'm gonna have to make sure to check that on this machine. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching along, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you very much.